A smile cannot reorganize a failing plan. An affirmation cannot make a difficult decision on your behalf. You may repeat that everything is working out, but if the plan is collapsing, the facts still require diagnosis, revision, and perhaps the courage to begin again. You may speak confidently about tomorrow, but if a necessary decision stands before you today, no cheerful sentence will decide it for you. Let us admit this without hesitation. Pain concealed beneath cheerful language remains pain. Fear covered by a slogan remains fear. A neglected problem does not become harmless because you have learned to describe it pleasantly. If this is what you have been taught to call a positive mental attitude, your skepticism is justified. Forced cheerfulness is not strength. Denial is not faith. A pleasant performance is not self-command. But now comes the more dangerous question. What did you choose after rejecting the performance? Did you choose truth or did you choose complaint? Did you reject shallow optimism only to make disappointment your permanent explanation? Did you expose the weakness of slogans, then use that weakness as permission to drift, delay, accuse, and surrender your authority? Understand this. Cynicism can become as evasive as cheerfulness. One refuses to see the problem. The other sees the problem and refuses to see any remaining responsibility. One says, nothing is wrong. The other says, nothing can be done. Both abandon reality at the point where reality demands disciplined conduct. So what separates resilience from denial, forced cheerfulness, and empty motivational language? The answer is not emotional comfort. The answer is self-government. A disciplined attitude faces reality, governs emotion, chooses language, and performs purposeful action. It does not falsify the fact. It does not permit the feeling to issue every order. It does not use words to inflate hope or enlarge helplessness. It asks what remains true, what remains governable, what must now be said, and what must now be done. These four movements belong together. Break the chain, and attitude becomes theater. Face reality without governing emotion, and the fact may overwhelm you. Regulate emotion without truthful language, and confusion returns through your own speech. Choose strong words without purposeful action, and language becomes decoration. Act without accurate interpretation, and effort may drive the failing plan farther in the wrong direction. The audience response to this distinction tells us something limited but useful. People recognize the need to separate disciplined resilience from superficial optimism. That response does not prove the framework true. It proves only that the question is alive and that many are tired of being ordered to smile when what they need is a method of command. You will receive that method. Before we are finished, you will have a practical test for any attitude you adopt. Does it produce clearer contact with reality, steadier command of emotion, more truthful instruction, and purposeful movement? Or does it merely disguise avoidance? Positive mental attitude begins where comfort ceases to be the test, and constructive conduct becomes the test. There is a third position between denial and despair. It is practical hope, and it begins by locating the inner authority from which every worthy response must be governed. Practical hope begins when you occupy the authority that is actually yours, not imaginary authority over every circumstance, not power over another person's judgment, the arrival of an opportunity, the timing of a result, or the consequences already set in motion. Your rightful authority is narrower than that and far more demanding. It is authority over the response you construct within the conditions you have been given. Here is the governing principle: circumstances present conditions, but attitude governs the meaning assigned to those conditions and the conduct chosen within them. The event may be external. The loss may be real. The restriction may be severe. Yet between what has happened and what you do next stands an internal system of command. Think of that system as an inner command post. Reports arrive there. Some announce delay, some announce rejection, error, conflict, or loss. An intelligent commander does not burn an unfavorable report, decorate it with pleasant language, or pretend that limited options are unlimited. The report is received accurately. Its consequences are studied soberly. Then an order is issued according to deliberate purpose. Receiving bad news is not surrendering command. Feeling its weight is not surrendering command. Command is surrendered when the report itself is permitted to decide what everything means, what you are capable of, how you will speak, and whether you will move. This replaces the weak question, am I happy or unhappy, with the stronger question, am I governed or drifting? Happiness may visit a governed mind, and sorrow may visit it too. Neither feeling proves who is in charge. The drifting person may sound optimistic while avoiding the necessary task. The self-governing person may feel trouble while carrying it out. Mood describes an inner condition. Discipline determines who directs conduct. Your power, then, is not measured by whether events obey you. It is measured by whether you govern your response when events refuse your command. You do not command every event. You do not command another person's decision. You do not command the hour in which effort will produce its result. But you remain responsible for the interpretation you accept, the emotion you regulate, the language you choose, and the next purposeful act you perform. These are not separate exercises. They form a causal order. Interpretation influences emotional posture. Emotional posture presses upon language. Language frames the actions the mind can recognize and authorize. Action repeated becomes habit, and habit displayed under pressure expresses identity. Therefore, the person who neglects the first movement may soon discover that the entire sequence has been directed by an unexamined verdict. When adversity enters, ask yourself who has taken the command post. Is the fact reporting or ruling? Is fear advising or issuing orders? Is resentment describing an injury or designing your future? Is habit repeating yesterday's response merely because deliberate purpose has failed to speak? Do not claim authority beyond your jurisdiction, that is fantasy, but do not abandon the authority within it, that is drift. Internal authority is not total control. It is the refusal to surrender the portion of control that genuinely remains. This is the disciplined attitude. Adverse facts enter, but deliberate purpose remains at its post. Now we must examine the first report more carefully. Before emotion rises, before language hardens, before action begins, the mind performs one decisive operation. It separates what actually happened from the verdict it rushed to pronounce. Begin with the report itself. The plan has missed its targets. Resources are depleted. Execution has been poor. Those statements may be severe, but if they can be demonstrated, they belong in the factual inventory. I am permanently incapable does not. That is not a measurement of the plan. It is a sentence pronounced upon the person. Learn this distinction and protect it. A fact reports a condition. A verdict extends that condition into identity, destiny, or inevitability. The fact says, this attempt failed. The verdict says, I always fail. The fact says, the available resources cannot support the present plan. The verdict says, nothing can ever work. The fact limits what is possible now. The verdict may erase possibilities that the fact never touched. This is how the mind turns adversity into fatalism. It combines evidence with condemnation, then reacts as though both arrived from the same source. They did not. One came from conditions. The other was added through interpretation. Do not mistake this discipline for sugarcoating. Reality-facing judgment may conclude that the plan is broken, the error was costly, the agreement cannot continue, or the relationship has changed. It may require you to admit that persistence has become waste. It may require revision, withdrawal, apology, or acceptance. Truth does not owe you a pleasant conclusion. But neither does pain possess the right to enlarge that conclusion without evidence. Examine the words always, never, ruined, and impossible. Are they supported by the full record or carried into your judgment by emotional momentum? If you say the plan is ruined, do you mean one result cannot be recovered or that no useful response remains? If you say change is impossible, have the available paths been examined or has exhaustion closed the inquiry? Every absolute conclusion must earn its authority. When the report is adverse, conduct a three-question reality audit. First, what is demonstrably true? Remove accusation, prophecy, and self-condemnation. Name the condition with precision. Second, what does this fact require? Does it require correction, disclosure, a changed timetable, a difficult conversation, or the ending of an unworkable effort? Third, what remains mine to choose? Locate the decision that still belongs to you, however narrow it may be. These questions do not manufacture easy outcomes. They recover legitimate options. You may repair what can be repaired. You may renegotiate what can no longer be fulfilled as first arranged. You may seek counsel where your judgment is insufficient. You may change the plan, accept the loss, or stop wasting effort on what cannot be restored. None of these choices guarantees success. Each restores movement from illusion toward responsible conduct. Realism and hope are not enemies. They become partners when hope stops predicting a painless outcome and begins searching honestly for the next workable response. Realism defines a constraint. Hope refuses to declare the remaining territory empty before it has been examined. Remember the principle. Adverse facts may restrict your options, but an undisciplined verdict can destroy options that still exist. Tell the truth about the condition. Refuse to convert a limited defeat into a total identity. Ask what is true, what is required, and what remains yours to choose. Yet correct interpretation does not instantly quiet the blood. Fear may still rise, anger may still burn, grief or shame may still press for control. The mind may understand the report while emotion attempts to seize the authority to act upon it. That is the next discipline. Let emotion speak truthfully about its presence, but never permit it to rule. Do not add a second burden to the first. If fear is present, do not become ashamed that you are afraid. If anger has risen, do not pretend serenity merely to appear disciplined. If grief has entered, do not accuse yourself of weakness, because you cannot dismiss it on command. If exhaustion has reduced your strength, do not call the honest recognition of that limit a moral failure. A positive mental attitude does not demand instant happiness. It does not require emotional numbness. It does not ask you to manufacture a cheerful face while inner pressure gathers force beneath it. That would return us to the counterfeit we have already rejected. Feelings are real experiences. Their intensity, however, does not make every impulse wise, every conclusion accurate, or every proposed action worthy. Treat emotion as a messenger carrying urgent information. Fear may announce perceived danger. Anger may announce violation. Grief may announce loss. Exhaustion may announce that present demands exceed present capacity. Receive the message. Examine it. Respect what it reveals. But do not hand the messenger authority over the entire operation. There are three ways to respond to inner pressure. Denial says, this feeling must not exist. Indulgence says, because this feeling exists, I must obey it. Regulation says, this feeling is present, and I will decide what follows. That is self-government. Use a compact sequence. Name, narrow, and choose. Name the emotion accurately. Do not hide fear beneath irritation. Do not disguise grief as contempt. Do not call exhaustion laziness merely because you dislike your limitation. Accurate naming reduces confusion without reducing seriousness. Then narrow your attention to the present decision. Emotion wants to spread. One danger becomes a future filled with danger. One injury becomes a reason to attack everything connected with it. One loss darkens every remaining obligation. Refuse the expansion. Ask, what decision is actually before me now? Then choose conduct aligned with purpose, not conduct designed merely to discharge pressure, not conduct that offers 5 minutes of relief at tomorrow's expense. Purpose must decide what the feeling cannot. Ask 3 questions. What is this emotion urging me to do? What will that action cost tomorrow? What response would preserve both truth and self-respect? Fear may urge retreat, yet you may prepare carefully and proceed while fear remains. Anger may urge punishment, yet you may establish a firm boundary without surrendering to cruelty. Grief may weaken your desire to move, Yet you may perform a necessary duty without pretending the loss is small. Exhaustion may urge total abandonment. Yet you may reduce the scope honestly, protect what is essential, and postpone what cannot be carried responsibly. These emotions are not interchangeable, and discipline does not erase their causes. It gives each one a rightful place without granting any one of them unlimited jurisdiction. Do not make flawless calm your standard. Composure is not the condition of never being shaken. It is a practiced return after the shaking begins. You may lose steadiness for a moment. You may speak too quickly, withdraw too sharply, or feel the old impulse take hold. Catch it, name it, narrow the decision, choose again. The disciplined person is not the person who never feels pressure. The disciplined person recovers behavioral authority before pressure becomes policy. You do not master emotion by denying its presence. You master your conduct by refusing to make emotion your commander. And once the feeling has been restored to its proper role, the next contest begins. The words through which pressure will become either an excuse to drift or an instruction to act. Pressure reaches conduct through language. Before the hand withdraws, before the decision is delayed, before responsibility is assigned elsewhere, words prepare the permission. They can enlarge difficulty until helplessness appears reasonable, or define difficulty until a responsible choice becomes visible. Do not confuse pleasant repetition with disciplined speech. A reassuring sentence cannot supply missing evidence. It cannot build a plan, establish a boundary, make the apology, or settle the decision you have avoided. If words merely improve your mood while leaving the required response untouched, they have become another performance. Language is the vocabulary of your inner command post. Reports must be clear. Orders must be usable. Vague catastrophe creates fog. Everything is ruined. Nothing works. There is no way forward. Precise description clears the field. This attempt failed. This consequence must be accepted. This portion remains within my control. This step must be taken next. That is the difference between complaint and diagnosis. Complaint circles pain without assigning responsibility. It repeats the injury, enlarges the offender, and rehearses powerlessness. Diagnosis names the condition, identifies its consequence, and specifies the required response. Complaint asks to be repeated. Diagnosis asks to be acted upon. Listen closely to the phrases you use when pressure rises. Nothing works. Is that true? Or did one method fail? I cannot handle this. Do you lack all capacity, or do you need assistance with a particular task? They ruined everything. Did another person cause real damage, or have you surrendered every remaining choice to that damage? There is no point. Has every worthy outcome disappeared, or have you not yet made the necessary decision? Audit your thought and speech without mercy, but without humiliation. Replace exaggeration with disciplined formulation. Say this attempt failed and I must examine why. Say this part is outside my control and this part still belongs to me. Say I need help with this task and I will request it. Say I have not yet made the necessary decision and I will name it now. Notice what these statements do. They do not soften the difficulty. They place a boundary around it. They preserve the fact without turning the fact into total authority. They return language to its proper function, not to flatter the listener, but to instruct the listener. Even first-person declarations must meet this standard. Do not announce strength as though the announcement itself were strength. Make a behavioral contract. I will face the fact without distortion. I will govern my response without denying my emotion. I will complete the next named action. Then name that action precisely. A declaration without a task is aspiration. A declaration tied to conduct becomes an order you can honor. Test every strong statement by two requirements. Is it honest enough to survive contact with reality? Is it specific enough to direct behavior? If it fails the first test, it is polished self-deception. If it fails the second, it is noise dressed as conviction. Your words must neither conceal adversity nor enthrone it. They must tell the truth, limit the conclusion, locate responsibility, and issue a usable instruction. Once they have done that, speech has reached its boundary. The next proof cannot be spoken. It must be performed. Then perform the instruction. If accurate interpretation, governed emotion, and disciplined language leave your conduct unchanged, they have not yet formed a disciplined attitude. They have prepared one. They have clarified the ground. But attitude becomes real at the precise moment. A chosen principle overrules an easier delay. Do not mistake movement for purpose. A troubled mind can generate enormous activity while avoiding the one act that matters. It can answer minor messages, rearrange details, begin secondary tasks, and exhaust itself in motion. Purpose does something more demanding. It selects the action most relevant to the actual condition. Busyness asks, how much can I do? Purpose asks, what must this condition receive from me now? Return to the failing plan. Constructive action may not mean working longer or speaking more confidently. It may mean revising the schedule, confronting a cost you preferred not to see, requesting expertise you do not possess, removing a weak step, or ending the plan responsibly. The correct move is not always continuation. It is the response that serves the truth of the desired result under the limits now revealed. Use this formula whenever pressure makes action seem vague. Name the desired result. Identify the present obstacle. Choose one physical action within your current authority. Assign that action a time. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. A time. What result are you trying to produce or protect? What obstacle is presently preventing movement? What can your hand, voice, or body actually do about it? When, precisely, will you do it? This sequence turns practical hope into conduct. It carries you from intention to contact, from possibility to responsibility. The next effective move may appear modest. It may be a call you have avoided, a written admission, a boundary stated without hostility, a request for help, a commitment canceled because it can no longer be honored, or 10 minutes devoted to the first repair. Do not despise the action because it is small. A modest act aligned with reality carries more power than a dramatic promise designed to postpone reality. Watch carefully, for delay disguises preparation. You may continue reading after you already know enough to begin. You may rehearse the conversation until rehearsal becomes refuge. You may polish the document because sending it exposes you to judgment. You may wait for confidence as though confidence were permission. But confidence often follows responsible action. It does not always precede it. Preparation is useful only while it improves the next move. When it merely protects you from constructive discomfort, it has joined the opposition. Now identify one consequential action you already know is necessary and have repeatedly postponed. Do not select a harmless task merely because completion will feel pleasant. Select the act whose delay has preserved a condition you claim to oppose. Name it privately and exactly. What will you do? Whom must you contact? What must be submitted, refused, admitted, scheduled, revised, or ended? Keep that action before you. We will return to it. Understand the boundary of this promise. Purposeful action does not guarantee the result you prefer. The call may not be welcomed. The request may be denied. The correction may not recover what was lost. You govern the integrity and relevance of your conduct, not every consequence that follows it. But the act ends voluntary drift. It replaces passive wishing with an honorable response. It gives you conduct you can respect, even when the outcome remains uncertain. This is practical hope made visible, not certainty of victory, but purposeful movement within real limits before comfort arrives. One decisive act proves that command can be recovered. Yet adversity will return, pressure will rise again, and old habits will attempt to reclaim the sequence. Therefore, the next task is to turn this single act into a daily rhythm, a code that reunites fact, emotion, language, and action whenever you begin to drift. The daily rhythm begins with an honest admission. You will not remain perfectly governed. Pressure will surprise you. Emotion will gain momentum. Old language will return before deliberate thought can stop it. You will sometimes drift, The code exists because command can be lost and because it can be recovered. Consistency is not uninterrupted control. Consistency is repeated correction. Begin each morning before distraction multiplies its demands. Name the most consequential fact confronting you today. Not every concern, not every unfinished detail. The central fact. Then ask, what part of this condition remains within my authority? Finally, schedule one purposeful action that serves that responsibility. Give the day an instruction before noise gives it an excuse. Suppose the morning fact is that an important plan is already behind schedule. You acknowledge the delay without declaring the entire effort doomed. You identify your authority. You can examine the cause, revise today's priority, and communicate what must be communicated. You schedule the first effective move. Then midday brings another setback. A needed result does not arrive. Pressure rises. Fear predicts further failure, and the mind begins repeating, this is falling apart and I cannot recover it. Pause there. Name the dominant emotion. Audit the sentence. Choose the next effective move. This is fear. The setback is real, but the prediction is not yet established. My next move is to examine what changed and decide what this afternoon now requires. That pause is not weakness. It is the recovery of jurisdiction. You have stopped an emotional surge from becoming a reckless phrase, and a reckless phrase from authorizing useless conduct. The plan may still be in difficulty. The day may still cost more than expected. But you have returned from reaction to purpose. At evening, conduct the full review. Where did fact become verdict? Where did emotion issue orders? Where did language create fog? Where did action occur, and where was it avoided? Do not use the review to prosecute yourself. Use it to correct the sequence. If interpretation exaggerated the setback, revise it. If emotion governed conduct, name what it urged and what purpose required instead. If your words enlarged helplessness, restate them as an accurate instruction. If action was postponed, reschedule it specifically. Correction without condemnation preserves responsibility. Condemnation often becomes another method of escape. Morning, face the fact. Locate authority, appoint the action. Under pressure, name the emotion, examine the sentence, choose the move. Evening, review the chain, repair the break, return unfinished duty to the calendar. This is how the 4 disciplines become dependable. Not because the day obeys your plan, but because every hour offers another point of return. The self-governing person is not one who is never shaken. It is the person who recognizes drift before surrender becomes habit, corrects course without theatrical shame, and returns to purpose while the conditions remain imperfect. Make that your identity. I face, I govern, I speak truthfully, I act, and when I drift, I return. The code is now complete. One matter remains. The consequential action you named earlier is still waiting, and the final test is no longer whether you understand the method. It is whether you will use it now. The plan may still be failing. The decision may still be difficult. Nothing in this method promises that an accurate mind will receive comfortable facts, that a governed heart will feel no pain, or that purposeful action will produce the preferred result. It promises something more dependable. You need not meet an adverse condition with a smile that conceals it, a slogan that cannot change it, or a complaint that surrenders your remaining power. You now possess the complete answer to the question with which we began. What separates resilience from denial? 4 disciplines, joined in one practice. Face the fact, govern the feeling, choose the words, perform the act. Remove any one of them, and attitude becomes incomplete. Facts without self-government become defeat. Feeling without limits becomes direction. Words without truth become performance. Intention without action becomes delay. The 2 old masks will still offer themselves. Denial will call pain pleasant and ask you to applaud what should be corrected. Helplessness will call responsibility impossible and ask you to abandon what remains yours to do. Reject both. You do not have to praise the problem. You do not have to pretend that every outcome is available. You have only to tell the truth, retain your legitimate authority, and use it. Take the present problem and write 4 lines. The fact I accept is, the emotion I will not obey blindly is, the language I choose is, the action I begin now is, do not decorate these lines. Make them exact. Let the first contain no prophecy. Let the second name the feeling without shaming it. Let the third describe the condition without enlarging it. Let the fourth require a physical beginning within your authority. Then speak this contract aloud. I will tell the truth about what is happening. I will not surrender the authority that remains mine. I will act within that authority now. Now return to the consequential action you identified earlier. You knew its name before this final moment. Perhaps you have surrounded with analysis, rehearsal, minor duties, or promises of a better time. That time is no longer the question. The question is whether your chosen identity will become visible in conduct. When this script ends, take the first physical step. Open the document. Make the call. Send the request. State the boundary. Put the decision on the calendar. Do not wait for emotional agreement. The disciplined mind does not require reality to become comfortable before it chooses a worthy response. Here, then, is the final diagnostic. Does your attitude conceal the condition, excuse your drift, or merely make you feel better while nothing necessary is done? Then it is not positive. Does it face reality, regulate pressure, produce truthful instruction, and direct constructive conduct? Then it is positive even while the hour remains hard. The plan may require revision. The decision may carry discomfort. The result may remain uncertain. Practical hope does not promise ease. It means that difficulty will no longer be met by a drifting person. You know how to return. You know what remains yours. Now leave reflection. Place your hand upon the delayed action and begin